Everybody. We are back. We are here. We are live. Now, women's sports are having a moment like never before, from sold out arenas to record breaking viewerships. Female athletes are claiming their spotlight. But what does it take to make it in these traditionally male dominated spaces? We'll answer this question and more on this week's episode of ESS Podcast. Welcome back to the Entertainment and Sports Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Maccabee Griffin, stepping in for Ashley this week. Now, our guest today is Jaze Bordeaux, director and producer of the multi-award winning film EFC, a sports drama set in the world of women's MMA that's earned over 30, I say 30 international awards, including Best Director at the prestigious Palladino d'Oro International Sports Film Festival. Through his lens, Jaze explores the sacrifice, identity, and raw resilience that define the female athletic experience. Thank you for being here, my friend. How are you today?
Hi, Mac. Thanks for, excuse me for a moment. Thanks for having me today. I'm all smiles right now. I guess that's a story between us, but really happy to be on and chatting with you today.
It has been an interesting morning, folks. I promise you. To just give you a highlight on this, this is the third time that I am trying to record this, that my son, my 9-year-old son, has interrupted me every time that we have went live. And Jace has been in the green room just laughing his butt off the entire time.
I thought we'd be adding him as a co-host to this session this morning, but I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to stop laughing, right?
I know,
But,
I know. We might as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll make his way soon, right?
One of these days, I'm sure. But anyways, let's get back to you. The man, the myth, the legend. Can you introduce yourself to our audience here for a little bit, please? Just because.
Absolutely. As you said, Jaze Bordeaux. I am actually based in Toronto, Canada. And I guess for your audience, because sometimes I find people don't know this, but Toronto is often referred to, and I can include Canada in this, as the Hollywood of the North, just because of the sheer volume of productions that take place in Toronto and also the rest of Canada, like Vancouver. So largely, a lot of the shows you're watching on Netflix or Amazon or anywhere, there's a good chance they were shot here in Canada. And then there's a reason for that, but we don't need to go too much into that right now. Largely known for, as you alluded to in your introduction, for EFC, which was a women's based mixed martial arts film. I would say it is also more than that. That just recently came out at the end of last year and has been doing well. We can talk more about that later.
Absolutely.
But I also like to tell people I'm not really a filmmaker. I'm in the business of filmmaking, partly because we are working on a slate of movies over the next decade, focused mostly more on the sci-fi thriller genre, but essentially that's largely what we're going to be doing for the next foreseeable future, right? Not that it's 100% focused on that, but it's largely focused in that realm and that genre for the most part. So that's just a really quick recap and overview of kind of who I am and what's going on right now.
Wow, that is a lot. And here's the thing I really, really enjoy about this show is that listeners of the show, many of them are inspiring professionals in sports or film or both. And what we're, it's always interesting to see who you're touching and who you're inspiring and things of that nature. And to get into this a little bit more, what were some of the unseen challenges or pivotal moments in your early career that shaped your path into the producing and directing that you're doing today, especially with projects like EFC and even upcoming projects like Let Go and Genesis?
It's really interesting because largely when we're talking to filmmakers, and maybe you can relate to considering your background as well.
Hmm.
uh, Sometimes I feel like there is this uh, anxiety or anxiousness that people have. It's like it's got to happen now,
Hmm.
and I've got to make it today, and tomorrow it's too late. And if it doesn't happen by tomorrow or the day after, the latest, then it's like the end of the universe.
Hmm.
It's such to this vast degree. And one of the biggest things I think when you talk about challenges, I'm going to go back to mindset a little bit because, and I've told this story so many times, but I remember when I was much, much, much younger, 18, 19, 20, going to some conference and everybody was on the edge of their seats because this billionaire was going to come and give a speech. And I feel as though I can't speak to everybody that was there, but maybe me specifically, that he was going to tell us something
Hmm.
that was going to be like the one thing. And then all of a sudden, the next day, ultra successful, right?
Yeah.
And he got up on stage, and what he told everybody, if you're going to do anything in business, it's going to take time. It's going to take 10, 15, 20 years. Not what I wanted to hear at all, right?
Right.
And I'm not sure if it was anything anybody else wanted to hear. But 20 years later, I do understand exactly what he means because it does take time. And when I say that, I'm not discounting what can be done in a year with
Mhm.
focus, dedication, and momentum, and what can be accomplished in one year, and you can leverage that to the next year and then the year after. But it does take a little bit of time, and one of the biggest things to navigate, I think, when you're starting out, just mentally first, is one, um, you have to be prepared that everything you're doing, good, bad, or ugly, is going to build to the next step, right? And it's just going to keep progressing. So we started off this podcast talking about EFC. You said largely known for that, and it's
Mhm.
received all these international awards, which we're really grateful for. But what a lot of people maybe don't know is that there were a bunch of projects I had before that that didn't make it.
Yeah.
But those projects prepared me for one like EFC, which, to be honest, had its sheer degree of challenges and difficulties from day one. The
Mhm.
odds were against us in terms of finishing it and completing it, right?
Yeah.
But through the chaos of that, and I can talk about that in just a moment,
Mhm.
I heard comments from people after, and they said, "Well, wow, with all the things going on, you never lost your cool. You just stay calmed. It was just like, okay, another day at the office. You moved, you pivoted. Ultimately, you got it done against the impossible odds. But everything else before that, kind of prepared the way to
Yeah.
do that. Even the team, some of the team you assembled to get that done, like the team I had, came from maybe other projects that didn't work, right? But then you
Mhm.
figured out who you can work with and what kind of team you can put together, and then ultimately you get a great team going against impossible situations, and then you can get you know um, the outcome that we had, right?
Yeah.
So just to go back, I think the biggest obstacle starts in the mind. Sometimes certain expectations are a little unrealistic. So you have to be, and largely in 2025, I find a lot of that. If it doesn't happen now, then it's not a success, or it's not, whatever. But largely, if you look back, anything that's really like worked, or anyone who's been successful, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It took time.
Yeah.
um, but again, not taking away what could be done in a year. Focused with momentum, a lot can be accomplished, but it builds to the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and the next step, right?
Yeah, I
um,
agree. It's one of those things that a lot of times today everybody wants everything now. And I think sometimes with technology that changes someone's mindset in terms of the way that they think everything should be, especially with younger people. We all were like that when we were younger. We wanted
yeah,
everything like as quickly as possible without sometimes without even putting the work in.
yeah,
And we just believe that if, like a kid does, is like, I want to be a doctor, but they don't know everything that goes into being a doctor or a firefighter or a soldier or a storyteller.
yes,
And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about films, about plays, about just storytelling in general, because it has such an impact on the way people perceive life and the way that they perceive their own lives and how it interacts with their social lives, their uh, faith, their everything. Because then you realize that you're not just that one person changing the world, it's everybody around you that you bring into your world to help change it or to create something that is, in your case, 30 international awards for just this specific project. And I like how you also said that you had tons of, well, I shouldn't say tons, many,
yeah,
many projects that didn't go anywhere, but yet you still say them or tell us about them because of the fact that they made an impact on your life. They got you to that next step. And I think that's something that a lot of people really don't understand sometimes as well.
yeah. And we had a brief conversation about this before we started too.
Mhm.
Just being able to transfer. It's interesting how certain skill sets can transfer into something else, and then that
Mhm.
something else becomes morphs into another thing, and then the thing after ends up defining, your life in, to some degree. So sometimes it may not end the way you envisioned it, but
Mhm.
it's still kind of the same path, but it's just different, right?
Yeah.
But largely I would say too, our biggest barriers are ourselves.
Mhm.
Even doing something like EFC, when we first started talking about it, and
Mhm.
we announced it, talking to distribution was real. This was very interesting, and we're talking 2016, I believe, and it hadn't really been done yet. The concept, like if you look at the drama sport genre, like we
Mhm.
we we could literally went through the list of hundreds of films, and it wasn't there. And
Yeah.
largely too, the sport is kind of new, but it wasn't there. It hadn't been done. So we talked to distribution and said, well, women in those types of roles, it doesn't sell. That was a mindset. Literally, it
Mhm.
wasn't that long ago. We're talking 2016, 9 years ago. That mindset was there, like putting women in these kind of like non kind of traditional roles was, I'd heard it's risky, but if you have some good supporting males in there, it's really interesting to think back to those conversations, and when we would try to counter and say, well, yeah, but this is new, it's fresh, and
Yeah.
and they would say, well, there's a reason it hasn't been done before, right? Because it's not going to sell. So we had so much, just in terms of trying to get people to believe that this is something, there's a market for it, people want to see it. It really helped that a year later, Halle Berry said, "Hey, I'm going to do a film, a women's MMA film," which she did, called Bruised, that
Mhm.
Netflix picked up, and something was happening at that time with just women in sports in general.
Yeah.
Just the air was changing, something was changing, the mindsets were changing. You had Ronda Rousey coming up; she was just getting so much mainstream attention. It was just like a perfect storm, in a way. And I'm glad to, when we look back, to see we were right,
Hmm.
and we've made whatever contribution we made, however small, or how much. Well, listen, ripples usually can turn into waves. So
Yeah.
I like to say we were a little drop, in that whole, wave of whatever's happening right now. But I'm happy to see it, though, right?
Yeah, I am
Yeah,
too. I think it's really interesting because of how widespread a lot of things have been changing. The like you said, between one major, I call her a legend because she is in my mind, actress in Hollywood says she's going to do something, even though the industry is saying it's not going to work. People aren't going to go after it, and yet people were, and it
yeah,
changed even further. You know, with MMA, females, female. I don't want to call it fighting, but that's pretty much what it is, anyways. It's you know competition, but I like the fact that when you looked at it differently. You looked at it from not only the career, what's in front of the cameras, but what was in their personal life as well, in a sense. And going through that transition of, somebody who's on top all of a sudden loses, and now they have to deal with that aftermath of what other people see them as. And I think it's interesting because when we look at it from a real world standpoint, Ronda Rousey went through that. She was untouchable for a long time. And then all of a sudden, she's done and she can't even deal with it. And she had to step away. And that's what I
yeah.
think is interesting about your characters, is because they go from that one position of being on top to all of a sudden, now I have to transition to something else because the industry's not behind me.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, what was some of the behind the scene elements that might surprise our listeners about, not only with the appeal, like you said, with Halle Berry and all them else, everything else with that, but in your personal life, how is this like really? What was it that wanted you to go directly after this specific subject matter?
I think so. There's two ways to look at it, and that's largely why I said I'm in the. I like to refer to myself as being in the business of film making,
Hmm.
because our plan was always to develop a slate of movies, and there was actually another film we were going to do that wasn't EFC, but there was a moment, an inspired moment. Just it was. I couldn't even tell you where I was or how it happened. It was almost like a lightning in a bottle thought or idea, which is something else I think I'll talk about later. But all of a sudden, I just wait a minute. Uh, there have been female boxing films, and I'm like,
Yes.
has there ever been a women's mixed martial arts film? And just combing through stuff. There have been scenes in movies that maybe you see. A kick or a throw or a hip toss or something, whatever.
Hmm.
But it hasn't really quite been one like that. And so it's like, okay, so there's something here.
Hmm.
Now with a subject like this, if you immediately start talking about it, I knew people would be expecting more the gritty, the fighter kind of underdog kind of story, but that's kind of been told a lot in
Yeah.
other types of films. I mean, heck, we just had three Creed movies.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're phenomenal, they're great. It's just that, the Rocky type of story has been done a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, there's nothing new there. But now all of a sudden we get to EFC. Okay, all right. Typically in most films, when we meet, let's say, the protagonist, it's usually a climb up to the top.
Right.
Suppose when we meet her, it's a climb down to the bottom. And it's not just like coming back to get to where she was, but she's got to climb a new mountain. So she's got to kind of figure out who she is again
Hmm.
outside of this, as you would say, where you're being pushed by the media or whatever the case might be. And then there's a new mountain, a much bigger mountain than you could ever have conceived before, where the stakes are so high and involves like so many more people, not just yourself,
Yeah.
right? So then it was like, okay, we could do something that's a little bit different than maybe what people would expect. So when people do watch EFC, it may not be exactly what they expect, and I have heard that. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting it to be. Actually, our distributor, the first thing he said to us, I wasn't expecting it to be this type of a film, this type of empowerment film. I thought it was going to be something else, right?
Yeah.
He literally said, I thought it was going to be the gritty underdog fighter story type scenario, not this type of version where it's really about this empowerment issue and looking at a bigger theme outside yourself,
Yeah.
impacting others, and all of those elements that we tried to put in there, right?
Here's the
Um,
thing, real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but here's the thing I really thought was interesting is the fact that you're also putting in elements of like almost a sense of PTSD in a sense with the loss of her sister and how she has to deal with that struggling of one, she's trying to do everything, and then all of a sudden, this version of her sister is just yelling at her like she is the worst, that she shouldn't be in the industry anymore. She's embarrassing not only herself but the family and all these other things. And I think that's something that can always be trend be transformable, not only in MMA but in the world in general. If you think about like for soldiers dealing with PTSD and dealing with the survivors, the whatever the survivors uh, loss and all this other stuff. I can't remember the specific term anymore. My brain just went blank. But it's something that everybody goes through. And I think that's
yeah,
another thing that was really interesting with the way that you guys had presented this to people, because I don't think I've ever really seen that in anything before. And when it comes to anything sports, uh, entertainment.
yeah. And along that lines, that's what we were aiming to do, and I think our aim was much even bigger. We wanted to hit that point. We also wanted to hit the point where it was almost representative of the way we fight ourselves,
Yeah.
because our biggest fight really at the end of the day is with ourselves. It's largely the battlefield's in the mind.
Mhm.
uh, real, and it's like, how do you overcome that, right?
Yeah.
Because that is essentially our biggest obstacle. When I hear someone, sometimes I will talk with younger filmmakers or younger people in general, and they will sometimes think, because of maybe circumstances they were born into,
Yeah.
that their reach is limited. But it's like, but why do you think that, right?
Mhm.
So if you can just change that if you can just get through that battle in the mind, you'll realize there's no barrier right there. It's just it's in your mind. There's nothing stopping you, there's nothing blocking you. It's in that mindset, right?
Yeah.
um
And let me ask you this real quick to follow up on that real quick is that um, there's a lot of methods to this and how you can present it, how you can express it from not only a actor's point of view, from a director's point of view, from a writer's point of view. How did you get past those challenges of getting to that deeper emotional layer, just right on the screen?
So I'm going to tell you something. I'm not sure if I've said this anywhere, but one of our biggest challenges on set, as I mentioned, we had a lot of challenges to the point where we actually lost a third of the film.
Really?
And most of the film, most of the part that we lost had to do with that sub storyline. We had one of the actresses get sick. We had
Oh,
the worst snowstorm ever in Canada. It just destroyed our studio and just all kinds of complications. And then obviously we ran into COVID, so it wasn't like we can go back and start
right.
shooting stuff. So um, we had to work with what we had, right? Even though how it was written, if you looked at the script and if you look at the film, was a little bit more different. But we tried to go into, let's say, Cassidy. She was our protagonist in the film.
Hmm.
We tried to go into her psyche to use the relationship, at least the way she had envisioned it with her sister. Obviously, because her PTSD was triggered with her sister's passing,
Hmm.
as a metaphor in terms of what was happening in her life and how she overcame that with her sister was ultimately how she overcame that in real life to go on um, to to look at the big picture of things, how she was going to save the future of the sport for all of the female athletes and not
Yeah.
just um, about her in terms of what she's going to do for her. Her perspective and her mindset changed, right?
Yeah.
So initially, we were creating these metaphors to parallel each other to show how she climbs out. I'm not sure if it came out like that in the film. I think we did our best to kind of show it to a
Hmm.
degree, but essentially, that was the goal, right? Was to have that kind of parallel journey that mirrored what was happening with her in real life that she was using actually as a that reference point in her grid
Hmm.
to climb out of where she was in her real life, right?
Yeah, and I think you guys did that very well, because there is that development that she has to go through. There's other things that in her life that obviously push her to do that as well. But I think with everything that was going on with her and her going from being on the top all the way down to the bottom again kind of really helped express that too. And through that journey, we were able to see exactly what it was like to be a female MMA fighter through that portion of their lives because we,
Yeah.
again, never seen that before in anything. We've had, like you said, we've had all kinds of Rocky type movies, even including like $1 Million Baby, and yet it still didn't have that same feel to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think now, because one of the things I'm seeing now, and again, I know we were just a drop in the bucket, but
mhm,
I'm seeing a lot of films coming out right now about women in these combat sports types of roles, right? I think
mhm,
one just came out, Queen of the Ring. It was about the first female
yeah,
wrestler, and I saw Sydney Sweden. She's doing a film about a boxer, very famous boxing female. There's a lot of them like coming out right now or going into development, which speaks to the market. People want to see these stories, right?
mhm,
And I feel like this next era of films are going to focus largely on those types of stories, right? The impacts, the um, you know what actually happens in those situations. So I think we're going to be moving into a new era or a new like genre of that. It's just, you know, we had to start somewhere, right? uh when I said in 2016 we looked at the drama sports movie genre and there was not even one women's mixed martial arts film, to see that, well, I mean, there's more now. Right? I can count at least three or four, including Halle Berry's Bruised, and there's more to come. And then there's more variation coming out in terms of these women in sports and combat sports types of things. So I do believe we'll in the next era of it, we'll see a lot more
Yeah.
of that, and the stories being told in creative and innovative ways, right? So the next few years will be really interesting when it comes to these types of films, right?
Yes,
Just yeah,
absolutely.
just have to start somewhere.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that, again, like you said earlier, it's the mindset and changing it. If you once you change it in yourself, it's easier to, well, I can't say easier, but it's a lot easier to do it if you believe in it compared to everybody else. And once you start that domino effect, things will get changed, especially in the industry. I mean, we have so many inspiring writers, directors, producers, crewmen. I love the crew out of anybody because without them, nothing happens. I don't care if you've got the greatest of the greatest actors. Without the crew, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I really enjoy. How can they best connect with your ongoing projects and support your work, or even explore future collaboration opportunities with you?
Oh, easy. But just to comment real quick, because I do agree with you. A lot of the people that should be credited in these things, whether it's the crew, the producers, even most of the time, obviously the producers are the one that make it happen from start to
Yes,
finish to inceptions. Unless your name's Michael Bay, you don't really get the glory. But
true, true.
you got, and at the end of the day, if you look at the film, obviously the core of it is the producers because they're
Mhm.
overseeing it from forever. Uh,
Yeah.
the film will never die, and they've got to see it from the beginning till the end of time almost. So I do agree with you. The crews and everybody who usually does not get the glory, which typically is the director or the main actors, are
Mhm.
hands down the people you really gotta give all the props in the world to. So I with you on that 100%. um as far as me, I'm easy to find. At Jaze Bordeaux across all social platforms, so it's really easy to connect. And just to stay, if you want to stay up to date on what's going on, our next film coming out is called Let Go. You can follow that at Let Go Movie as well. And I consider myself a collaborator. I love to collaborate, so I'm always interested in hearing from people and seeing if there's synergy or anything there to work on towards the future.
Well, James, I appreciate you so much on this. One of the final things I want to ask you is, as we've gone through behind all the scenes with your incredible journey, personally, professionally, with EFC and everything, what is one thing this project has made you profoundly grateful for?
One thing that EFC specifically has made me grateful for, I would say my team. Obviously, in a high pressure situation that we had with EFC, I would say we had a lot of diamonds because a lot of our team, from our DP like Jason Romolo and our stunt and fight coordinator Wayne Wells, under pressure, like they created diamonds, right?
Yes.
And very, very grateful for the creative team and the producing team, right? And obviously this is a team that you're moving forward with together on different projects and different things, right? So I would say definitely the team. when you go through experiences like that, right?
Yeah. And I think that's awesome too, because it is one of the biggest things that we forget is everybody that's surrounding you and helping you, from the executive producers all the way down to the runners, to the people who are just putting tape down. It's amazing how many hands are involved with this. And first of all, I want to thank you for having your hands all over this, in a sense, and for being on here to share with us your journey, to share with us EFC and everything about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Mac. It was a pleasure, right?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for Jaze being here, for joining us today and telling us about EFC. EFC is available to watch on Tubi for free in the US and Canada, and it is available to rent or buy on platforms like Apple TV, Amazon Video, Fandango at Home, and Google Play Movies. And as always, our guests' information will be located in the episode description below so that you can follow, support, and possibly even collaborate on a future project with our guests. So that is all for us here at ESS. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcasting and social media platforms at Malabash LLC. And of course, head to our website at malabashentertainment.com. And finally, if you would like to be a guest or know someone who'd be perfect for the show, email us at hey@malabashentertainment.com. That is hey@malabashentertainment.com. Thanks for joining us. My name is Maccabee Griffin, and we will see you next time.